I'm somebody that does not believe the government ought to be funding with my tax dollars some of these certain entities where I'm going to say we're picking these winners and losers. I just don't believe that. I think the capital market should perform on its own, and they don't need that. Now, there's a possibility in certain industries, maybe they do need certain kind of tax credits, but again, that's a different kind of a chase, so we can go on. But these tax credits, as far as I'm concerned, are killing our nation. They're sucking the energy right out of our tax base, and we don't have the proper money to fund the vehicles we really do need funded in government, i.e. protection or security in the state of Oklahoma. The state of Oklahoma is supposed to keep me safe. The same way the nation is supposed to keep me safe. Because I can't fight off all these foreign invaders. No more than I can fight off all these drug lords or who else it is trying to take advantage of me and my family or my properties in Oklahoma. So government does have a purpose, but I do not believe, now that's me. That's me saying that. That's from this microphone. You may have a different opinion on it. But again, I am so thankful that we have somebody like David Dank that doesn't really need the job at the Capitol. He's doing this, what I'm going to say, is a public service. So thank you so much for working so hard and so diligently on doing this. So, without further ado, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn this mic over to Representative David Dank, and he can explain to us why he believes the way that he does and what he's attempted to do this year at the Oklahoma State Capitol. Very respectfully, Representative David Dank. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope my voice holds up. I have terrible allergies. Let me start by just telling you what we've done so far. First of all, Bob, is that better? We did make a little progress. When I was chairman of the Revenue and Tax Committee 2 years ago, I would not hear two venture capital bills, rural venture capital and the small business capital, that were costing this state over $200 million a year. Those are gone.
Amen.
I wouldn't hear them. George Kaiser came to my office, $10 billion. I asked him during that visit, I said, Mr. Kaiser, when is enough money enough? Came to my office and he said, Representative Dank, you're right. He said, they're being abused. He said, but I have a great idea. He said, let's extend them, let's phase them out over 5 years. And I said, I've got a better idea. I said, let's get rid of them now. They need to go. And here's why. Banks were using them as part of their lending operation. A gentleman came to me and he said, Representative Dank, if you don't renew the rural venture capital, which was 30% of their investment, if you don't renew that, my banker in Enid, Oklahoma, will not loan me the money to build an assisted living home. And I said, let me give you the first lesson in free enterprise. Economics 101, whatever you want to call it. You build assisted living centers where there are enough people who need assistance with their living. And that way you can make a profit after you build that. Me, my neighbors, my constituents, my family, we don't have any business helping you with that.
Here, here. That's right.
I asked them on the energy efficient homes. I've asked them on storm shelters. Let me give you an example. If my next door neighbor wants to build a storm shelter, why in the hell should I help pay for it?
Here, here.
And that's exactly what I'm doing if I give them tax credits.
Yeah.
Now, let me explain to you two things. Well, first of all, if you're talking about dirty air, you need to go to the Capitol. I mean, it is just infested with a situation out there that is so dangerous that I think the man who predicted 200 plus years ago that a democracy cannot exist. It cannot stand its own weight. Sooner or later it's going to crumble. And here's what happens. Once you start, the people find out they can get their fingers, their hands into the public treasury, they just keep electing people who will give them more and more and more. And just look at some of the things. 63% of all the births in this state are paid for by Medicaid. 63%. And you have prenatal, and you have women, infants, and children, and you have daycare, and you have free lunch programs, and you have earned income tax credit, you have food stamps, and guess what? We've got over 900,000 Oklahomans who are feeding off food stamps now. Over 900, almost a third. You just cannot believe the welfare programs. But of course, I'm here, Bob, to talk about tax credits. And you know, but the whole thing, and Mike will testify too. Mike was out there. Mike still keeps up. I just told Mike I was going to call him. A group is wanting to reinstate the Capital Investment Board, which has cost the state $50 million.
$55 million.
$55 million in the last several years. We got rid of it by telling them 2 years ago when I was head of revenue and tax. I'm not being braggadocious about this. I just had a different philosophy than most people who've been the head of revenue and tax. But we got rid of it by phasing it out until 2019. They cannot start any new projects, they cannot invest in any new ventures, and they can pay off what they owe, and in 2019, it's gone. Poof. Like a puff of smoke, because that's when their last obligation was due. There's still about 25 million in tax credits out there that are going to be owed, however might. But here's where we are on this thing. Bob, can you come up here, or somebody, Mike, can you pass, no, these are the one with the paper clip, no, the paper, I mean, yeah, pass those out if you will. Let me back up to the last night of the legislative session, May the 24th, 2013, when we had that, quote, conservative, end of quote, speaker, T.W. Shannon. Now, if you believe that he was a conservative, then I want to talk to you about the tooth fairy. Because you're real game for that. Now, let me tell you what happened on that day before the last day, but the last night of the session. They brought over from the Senate a bill to extend the wind tax credit and the coal credit from 2014 to 2021. We did even not know that that was moving in the Senate. So I went to what we call the calendar committee, which was just a phony deal. I went to the calendar committee, went into the committee, told them I wanted to speak on this, and was told by the chairman that you can't speak on this until after it's voted on. Well, I refrained from calling her Hillary. What's her name? Not Hillary. Yeah. I refrained from doing that. You won't know what's in this bill till we pass it. I refrained from doing that, but I got madder than I call it a tied-up jab. I'm thinking of those big sumo wrestlers, but I got mad and I stormed out of the conference room and I slammed the door. I mean, and I, on purpose, I almost took it off its hinges. And I went to my office and I was steaming. Well, the chairman, a lady, and the vice chairman of that committee came bouncing into my office. And I told them, you know, that's one of the most nonsensical, bad, worst pieces of legislation to ever come through this legislature, costing this state hundreds of millions of dollars, probably closer to $1 billion over the long haul. And you told me I couldn't speak on it until after it was voted on in that committee. How ridiculous. Well, let me ask you this. Will it come up before tomorrow morning? And I was assured it would not. I was assured that that bill would not come up. At 10:30 at night, and we just beat it till midnight, on that last night, they call up that bill. And once again, I'm upset. I go storming the floor leader's chair, and I said, what's the deal? I was promised this wouldn't come up until tomorrow morning. And they said to me, the speaker just called out here, and he wants it brought up now. That was Speaker Shannon. People wonder why I was never in the speaker's office when he was speaker. But let me ask you this. What does that tell you about the Republicans? What does that tell you about our party? 37 Republicans voted for that bill, and 20 Democrats, to pass that bill. And between the time it was passed in 2018 alone, just those years, it was extended till 21. Because of the 10 years that it goes out, it would not go away for 2031. But in those 4 years, it would cost the state $290 million just on the wind alone. Not considering the coal, which is kind of like nothing compared to the wind. But that's what you're up against out there. When I mentioned the stints, you know, what I was talking about is money. Money drives the thing. You know, there was an old philosopher one time here in Oklahoma. Hate to bring him up. He was really a socialist leader. His name was Oscar Ameringer. He was a good friend of Eugene Debs. That we had a big, well, very few people know this, but we had a very big socialist movement in eastern Oklahoma back in the 30s. But Oscar Ameringer, God love him, and everybody leaves us, I think, with something good, either a saying or something. He described politics as the art of extracting money from the rich and votes from the poor under the pretext of protecting each from the other. And the sad part is, nothing's changed, Oscar. It's the same. Campaign contributions. You would not believe it. Take a look. Go into the Ethics Commission. If you don't know how to use it, come out to the Capitol and I'll show you. Go into the Ethics Commission and the report that was submitted in December of 2013, that ended in December 31st of 2013. Check and see which legislators got money from the wind companies, particularly Next Era Wind. They're the biggest and they're the most generous, if you want to call them that. But check and see who they are. I mean, you know, I'm not going to stand here and tell you all of them, but, you know, $2,500, $2,000, you know, $2,000. And the other wind companies. Next Era, their parent company, Florida Gas and Light or whatever it is, contributed to the fund to recruit Hertz people out of Oklahoma to Florida for their incentive program down there. Well, that's what we're dealing with, folks. Nobody knew that better than this guy here. This guy here, say what you want to about it. We agreed and we disagreed, we mostly agreed. But we did disagree on some things, Mike.
Well, that's a fact.
I still love you and always will. But you know, ask Mike. Mike has been down there. He beat his head up against that proverbial brick wall and got a bloody head, just like I'm doing. With the exception of some of the things that we have accomplished, like the venture capital tax credits, like the capital investment board. That big deal that he's got over there, shake it for him, Mike. Show him what it is. It's just one copy.
That's all I got left of it. It used to be about this thick.
That shows the jobs that they say were created under that capital investment plan. Mike went to the Employment Security Commission and found out really how many jobs in Oklahoma had been created.
13.
Yeah.
13. And they said 11,000.
13. They were making these venture capital investments outside the state of Oklahoma. You know, I mean, you can't make this up, folks. You can't make this up. And all the time, like Bob said, our school teachers are underpaid. Hey, I had a wife, God rest her soul, I loved her dearly. Best wife a man could ever ask for. One of the best women in the world. I didn't want to run the last time. She was going downhill in 2012. And when she called me Buster, I knew she was serious. And in the filing week, she said, hey, I'll tell you what, Buster. She said, you get out there and file, you've got unfinished work. The kind of woman she was. She was a master's plus 30. All she had to do to get her PhD was to write her dissertation. But she could counsel, She was a high school counselor. She didn't need the PhD. So she was more concerned with kids and grandkids and that. But let me tell you something. She made in the lower to middle 30s when she retired. A master's plus 30. A high school counselor. Somebody whose kids adored her. She helped young people. And that's what she made. But we can't do this. We can't do it if we keep giving away all this money. Now some of them we agree and we don't agree. Like the quality jobs. I'm a big jobs guy. You know, you hire my neighbors, you hire my family, you hire my constituents, and they come to me as long as it's a good deal. And here's all I've asked for all the credits, all the incentives. I've been a businessman all my life. And before I made an investment, I'm trying to keep this up here. Before I made an investment, on every investment I ever made, I did what's called a cost-benefit analysis. What's it going to cost me, and what do I stand to benefit? And only then, if the benefits could exceed, they didn't always exceed, some of them went south. But if I had an opportunity to make money off of that and to do well with it, then I made the investment. And then after I had done it, after it had been done, after it had been operating, whatever, whether it was an oil investment, whether it was properties, whether it was insurance, whatever it was, I did what's called an economic impact study. You know, to see what it was and where it was going and how it was being affected. We don't do any of that. So this year, what do I have again? I have a bill to set criteria for tax credits. Every one of them would have to have an economic outlook deal, a cost-benefit analysis, and an economic impact deal. I want to tell you another one, Mike, and check the three, you know, the 3 votes in the last 2 years that I wish everybody in this room would go check and have the results. Find out who's voting for what. But that's number 1 was extending the film credit to pay a bunch of illicit people from Hollywood to come in here and have a gal stand up in this last movie, August Osage County, and say, "This is the most despicable place on the face of the planet." That's really good for this state, isn't it? We got a lot of good publicity. But let me tell you something. I had an economic impact done by the Commerce Committee. Had it in my hand, had a press conference, shook it in front of everybody, showing that this state lost $4.8 million on that film. $4.8 million. You know what the film people said? They said, well, they didn't consider the multiplier that they set. They didn't consider the fact that we were paying Joe Smock in Pahuska to stay in his motel. No, I'll tell you what we were considering. We were considering how much Joe Smock sent back to the state in taxes. What were their increases in the sales taxes? Not just statewide, but locally. What kind of employment taxes did we get out of that $5 million? That's what we considered. If you want to do a multiplier deal, do it at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Every time they play a game, this state makes money. Every time they play a game. People come into this town, people staying in the motels, and they play 41 of them a year, by the way, at home. Eating in the restaurants, buying in the gift shops, all of that. A lot more than any film being done in Osage County. But, folks, I'll tell you what, there are probably 10 tax credits that we could get rid of in this state. Or at least, and I was going to tell you, though, just briefly, about the difference between jobs. The quality jobs program needs reforming. I admit to that. Probably needs the amount raised. Mike doesn't want it, period. probably needs the amount raised that they qualify, and it probably needs some kind of a clawback clause where people don't. But it's a cash back deal. These people actually pay in, and then money is given back a portion of that. And people are being hired, and they're not contributing to your churches, and they're buying food, and they're buying clothes, and they're buying homes, and they're paying property taxes. It creates jobs. Same thing with the gross production tax, which is, I mean, you got a right to disagree with me on a lot of this. I introduced the bill that finally became law. Not that I changed it, I turned it over to the Speaker. My deal was predicated only on jobs when I introduced it. And then I said later on, which we couldn't get the Senate to go for, and God bless the Speaker was ready to do it. I said, let's be competitive and let's be fair at the same time, if that's possible. Let's go to 3.5% or 4%. It'd be on par with Texas, and never go back to the 7%. Let's just raise it to that. Well, no. So I told them this. I said, well, if we go above the 1 and come down on the number of months, I'm going to support it, and I'll tell you why. Because those jobs in the Devon Tower and the Chesapeake campus and Continental and Sandridge and Sampson and the others, those people, those high-paid engineers, those high-paid geologists that are doing geology and engineering on wells that are being drilled in Ohio and West Virginia and Pennsylvania are more important to me than putting that gross production where it should rightfully be. More of this state with that. And I'll tell you what, folks, I watch Shell Oil, I watch Phillips Petroleum, and I watch Conoco move their offices to Houston, Texas. And I don't want that happening for the rest of the companies that we have here, responsible companies. So there's a difference in what, and plus the fact that that's not an incentive as such. It is if you say, well, it was 7 and we lowered it. Right. But also the income tax was 7.25 and we lowered it. It's a tax on that product. And that's different than giving somebody money whether or not they pay taxes. When the Speaker carried that bill on the floor, I got up and I asked the Speaker. Probably wasn't in good taste, but I've never accused of that. I asked the Speaker, I said, Mr. Speaker, I can show you how much money the oil and gas companies are paying in gross production taxes. I can show you the thousands of jobs in the Devon Tower and the Chesapeake campus, Continental and the others. Would you be kind enough to show me where the wind companies who are getting all this money without paying anything in, where they are paying any taxes at all, and where they're hiring people? And he said, I don't know if you were there when that happened, he said, Representative Dank, you know I can't do that. The truth of the matter is that it's $290 million is what we're talking about, just in a 4-year period. The truth of the matter is they're not paying any taxes. They're not paying any taxes. If they were, they're also entitled to what we call an investment tax credit. And it can only be used against taxes owed. And none of them have triggered into that. So if they were paying taxes, they'd be triggering into the investment tax credit and paying it with that tax credit. And they still wouldn't be paying, but they'd be getting it from you and me and you, Steve. Anyway, it's a pretty convoluted story. I've been working on it for 7 years, Mike for 12. I don't expect you to understand it in 30 minutes. Here's my only suggestion to you. Do some research. Find out what legislators are doing what. And make them answer for that. Make them answer it. I don't do anything out there that I'm ashamed of. We may not always agree, but I'll always, always, always have an explanation for my reasoning. But make them answer. Check the voting records. Mike and I used to pull our hair out, saying, look who's carrying these bills. It's incredible. I've got another piece here that I can't pass out now, but it's the last example I'm going to give you. It's called the Home Office Tax Credit. Last year we gave Healthcare Service Corporation, which owns Blue Cross and Blue Shield, over $7 million in tax credits. State Farm, we gave over $5 million. They have been getting 1/2 of all of the taxes they collect from people on the premium tax if they hire 1,000 employees or more since middle of 1980s. As opposed to the quality jobs, which is 10 years and a half. They keep getting it. I've got a paper here that I'll give to Bob at some point, and it can pass out to you, that shows that Blue Cross and Blue Shield, or Home Healthcare Service Corporation, has gotten over $40 million since 2006. And State Farm over $40 million as well, because they have two companies. They're selling insurance, folks, and making money. What are we giving them all this money for? And why does it keep going on? And why isn't there a monetary limit? And why is there no review? It doesn't make any sense. You have a question, you're going to have to talk real loud. Can I take questions, Bob?
Yeah, we're gonna do that. Okay, now,
You said do the research, and I'm gonna do mine right now. Would you tell us the names of those people you're talking about?
I don't want to get into that. You can look it up.
Well, I'm here talking
I-
about
you
it.
know-
Tell us now.
Well, there's too many of them for me to study your name.
Well, give
Plus,
us
I don't
five.
want to forget any of them. Bob love them. If they deserve to be known, I'll show Bob any day of the night how to look it up, and he can print it off and share it with you.
Okay, do that. Go ahead.
Thanks, David, for being here, and we really appreciate your work. As a church, we had some property over across the street from our church that we looked into building a retirement center there. And people told me about tax credits. Well, at that time, this is several years ago, I didn't really know what tax credits were. But we had a man come to our church to talk to us about it. It's a big business in itself, because it was going to cost us $40,000 to get this fella to help us raise $2 million to build our thing. And I will give a name, George Young. You may know he's the new representative. That's how he built the retirement center out next door to his church using tax credits. Also, the Pershing Center that was built over there on Pershing, it was built with tax credits. So let me ask you a question on that. Is there a distinction made between tax credits that are basically, and of course that money comes from the banks and it comes from, you know, all these companies that are getting the tax credits. That's where the money goes, to these kinds of things. My question is, do they make a distinction between giving tax credits to a company that's making money and giving tax credits to an organization that's going to be doing something to try to help the elderly or the poor or whatever? Let me know about that.
nonprofit.
Non-profit, yeah.
If they do, I don't know what it is. I don't think there's any reviews on these things. If you qualify based on a very low criteria, then I don't think it matters who you are. You know, what we do is we put in there, if you invest so much money and or employ so many people, then you're entitled to the investment tax credit. And then after we go, just like the wind power, the way the wind power got the reimbursement, which we now pay Roger Mills County over $6 million a year with 3,700 people, that's over $1,700 for every man, woman, and child every year right now. But, you know, the way they qualified was like this. First, they got exempt under the sales tax on manufacturing. They said, we manufacture electricity. So they got exempt on that. They don't pay any sales tax. So then they went and they got exempt based on the fact that if you're exempt from the sales tax exemption on manufacturing, then you get the reimbursement for the property tax deal. And, you know, so these people are smart. I mean, you know, they want to be able to loan the money, do the same kind of trickery on nonprofits that they do on people with profit. And I don't know of any, really, that we do the type of thing that you're talking about, or that I'm talking about, where we actually look at these things and say, number one, what's the need? Number two, what purpose is it going to serve? And number three, how are the taxpayers served? And let me just say one thing. Nobody out there except Mike and myself and maybe a half dozen more appreciate the fact that it's your money. They think once you pay it in, it belongs to them.
Question back here. Let's go back here.
Representative Adam Pugh, we spoke on the phone a few times, and you actually represent my in-laws, so I know you're doing a good job. My father-in-law is a Democrat, but he speaks highly of you, so you are doing a good job. Yeah. My question to you, well, not so much a question, more of a suggestion, because it sounds like you maybe are in favor of some tax credits based on economic impact. They're industry specific, like you were talking about, you know, down in or something like that, that's actually a job creator. However, there is no state in the country currently that forces, at the state level, any corporation that receives a tax incentive or a tax credit, they do not have to publicly disclose that. Now, if they're publicly traded in their financials, they can tell you that they're getting tax credits or tax incentives. But at the state level, there is no state legislation across the country that makes any company that gets a tax credit or a tax incentive from their state to disclose that to the voter. So my suggestion would be, that is a great way to give knowledge to the voter and to the citizen, to write a piece of legislation that at least in some regard will make those companies or those entities that receive tax credits or tax incentives accountable to the taxpayer and ultimately to the voter and the consumer. So then you can decide not just who to vote for, but you can also decide where to spend your money, which is very important. So one of the things that I would like to see my representative do, and I would offer a suggestion to you as well, is to write up a piece of legislation that in the state of Oklahoma would force those entities that receive our money to then publicly disclose it to us at the end of either the tax year or the fiscal year, how much they are getting in tax incentives. I know the state provides some resources where you could tell us the energy, the oil and gas industry gets $100 million in tax incentives, but you cannot actually tell us 30 million goes to Devon, 50 million goes to Chesapeake, and so on. So, just a suggestion. Maybe you can't do it based on current state regulations. I don't know, but maybe you can talk to that for a minute or two.
That's a good idea. Let me say this. So, there is a clear distinction between incentives as such and tax credits that's passed out actually from the state treasury. Now, the only way the gross production tax is an incentive is if you want to say, well, at one time it was 7%, and then we went down to 1% on deep wells and fracturing. It's the only way you can say it's an incentive, but it's a tax. It's an actual cash-in type deal. Same way with quality jobs. It's a cash-back situation. They pay in, and then we give them a portion back. And to me, that's all predicated on jobs, just like the aeronautics and that. Some of you may not think that that's important that we give that. Some of you may think, well, they're going to stay here anyway, like Shell and Phillips, Conoco, and the others leaving. And so you're right. I'm for full disclosure. That's why the insurance department has a different set of standards on disclosure. I can get who gets all those tax credits, whereas with the state I can't. And you're right. I think anytime you're passing out the taxpayer money, you should be able to see it. And we'll take a look at that as well. My criteria bill goes into that to some extent, but not to the extent that you're talking about. But thank you for that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, yes, sir. Go ahead.
My name is Christopher, and Representative, thank you so much for being here. I'm a guest of Ed's, and I promise not to embarrass Ed today. So, you had mentioned about the wind energy. Where are those things manufactured? Because I see them going by the road all the time, those big giant blades and things like. Are they at least being manufactured here in Oklahoma? That was my question.
Well, yes, I mean, they do, actually, the energy is generated in Oklahoma. But by the way.
The machines themselves. So they're at least made here in Oklahoma?
No.
Oh.
In fact, ironically, most of them are made in Arkansas.
There you go.
Because they, the turbines.
There you
Because
go.
they gave them, they had the money deal where they gave them a cash deal like our governor's got now. And most of them are made and hauled in over here.
Wow, okay.
And a lot of the energy is sold to the Tennessee Valley Authority and to Alabama and other places.
Let's let Andy go first and then we can go next.
That was a great presentation. Can companies negotiate or use these tax credits as capital? Are they transferable among companies? So is there a possibility that we've given tax credits for a specific purpose and then they were, redirected somewhere else?
Yeah, a good many of them are. For example, the energy efficient, and others that I could name for you. I don't have them all off the top of my head. But one of the arguments that they used on the wind power when they extended it was they said, we're changing this from transferable to refundable. So what did they do? They put it in there that any tax credits you had that you didn't use would be refunded at the rate of 85% on the dollar. Well, they were selling for 80 cents on the dollar. So we actually gave them a 5% increase, didn't we, Mike? I mean, we could prove that they were being sold for 80 cents on the dollar. And then there was a commission that they paid to the people who were actually out selling them. So it was a great deal. If you're ex-wind company and you've got $1 million in tax credits, take it over to Tony Masted over at the tax commission. He'll give you a check for $850,000. And guess what? It's your money, and my money. If you're paying taxes, not your.
Couple, three things. One, with regards to the ethics reports, you really don't need to know every legislator. Wouldn't hurt. You need to find out how your legislator voted. Your representative and your senator. And you can go out and do that on the Ethics Commission website. And then you need to wear them out if they voted wrong. That's what you need to do. The tax credits, we didn't really cover this. And David and I, as he said, we disagree on some of them. We agree passionately on others. But what you have to understand, in my position, tax credits are entirely unconstitutional.
Amen.
Now, but why? It's because our Constitution says the state of Oklahoma cannot invest in a business, a private business. So the state of Oklahoma cannot write a check to Devon, to the Thunder, to anybody else. That's unconstitutional. So instead, we give them a tax credit, which is a check. And the Supreme Court has said, well, that's not really writing them a check. That doesn't violate the Constitution. So that's, I mean, once you go down that road, you have a problem. But quality jobs, we could argue, is a refund. It's reduction of their checks. The problem with, you mentioned about disclosure of who gets them.
Mike, ask a question.
I will. So, but you mentioned about disclosure and who gets them. There is disclosure. We already have it. There's reports out there. The problem is, what good does it do you to know that the Shadow LLC got a $40 million tax credit? Because in the state of Oklahoma, you can't know who the partners are of the Shadow LLC. Wouldn't you agree with that, David?
Yeah, but that's just one example of.
Right, but I just said the disclosure doesn't help us because we don't really know who's getting them.
Well, that's one example of many. Most of them we do know. We know who's getting them. But just like a home office, Mike, if you really want to talk, these people, a lot of them are call centers and that, or they figure out how many salespeople they have, and if they have over 1,000, they get to keep a half of their premium tax. Over 500, they get to keep 75% or whatever. But just like that, I mean, you've got to determine, there's got to be an end game. if you're trying to get new jobs, you know, that's one thing, because new jobs, no question about it, they spur the economy. Mike's right on the constitutional deal. Mike, I brought that up to staff, to lawyers, and to others on many times. You know, whether or not this constitutes a gift. A tax, like a gross production, quality jobs or that doesn't, because it's cash in, cash out, and it's a tax that they pay. So that's where we're going. I'm sorry.
Question.
Thank you for coming. My name is Paul. Your proposed bill that you're going to bring for cost-benefit analysis, do you have a number on it? Because tomorrow night, a lot of us are going to precinct meetings, and it's usually by House district, and our House representative is going to be at these meetings, and I would like to ask him how he's going to vote on such a bill. Do you have a number for it?
I don't have offhand. I can get that for you.
Okay.
Bob, would you call my assistant out there, Charlotte, and ask her what number that is on?
But your representative won't know the bill number. Just ask them how they're gonna vote on the issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he won't know the bill number, particularly now. They haven't been assigned a committee or
All
anything.
right.
At this stage, again, good point, Mike. So,
Okay, next.
Yes, sir, my name is Jim. For those of us who are not economists, and I'm assuming that's most of us here, is there any good public source of information on legislation that deals with these kind of issues that we can read and get an honest evaluation of? Are you familiar with anything that particular that would explain some of this proposed legislation at a level that maybe somebody like me could understand?
Chamber of Commerce.
Trust me.
well, you can on my bill. You can on mine, because I do summary. But, you know, as far as going to a site and getting it, no. In fact, I have threatened, I don't know how long God's going to let me live on the earth with my allergies and everything, but I have threatened to redo my conservative review newspaper that I put out for years. And quit putting it out in the 90s when my wife was elected to the legislature. But in it, I have threatened to put it out, and I've kept it. I've kept the website. I filed, tax stuff on inactivity and all that, all these years, because I didn't want to lose the name in that. To start printing the type of thing you're talking about, and to start printing voting records, so that these people would, and I think it would put McCarville and the rest of them in a back seat compared to the number of hits it would get. I think people are anxious to know that. And like I asked you before, folks, and I don't, I love my party, sort of.
Yeah.
But it really makes you wonder. When we're out there and there's really very little difference. One bill I did get through and got passed was going from 5% on 3% on the allowable that they could raise your property taxes. We put that on the ballot a few years ago. And my wife and I spent a good many thousands of dollars on radio and newspaper advertising because I don't get a salary. I put it all in escrow for reasons like this. I'm not trying to be, any kind of a Puritan or anything like that, because I'm not. But I'm not out there for the money either. And God's blessed me, so I'm able to do that. I can also tell people I don't want their contributions. I take very few. I don't get any $5,000 contributions like so many of them do. But, and again, I'm not a Puritan. I'm not sanctimonious. I just feel comfortable in my own skin.
And I think, addressing what Representative Dank is saying is that we're not going to find perfection. That's just not going to happen out at the state capitol. But the one thing that we can find, and I think we need to hold each one of them accountable, if you will just hold your own representative accountable, don't try to hold 101 of them accountable, just hold your own one accountable and your senator accountable. Then we can actually make some progress. And I think too many times what we're trying to do is win that huge battle out there that nobody's ever going to win. I mean, the things that Representative Dank is talking about, we previously had, and he's still a member of this group, High Noon Club, is Walt Hill. Walt Hill was a minority leader of the state capitol when the Republicans were in the minority. And the things that Walt used to talk about are the same things that Mike Reynolds talked about, Representative David Dank is talking about, Representative Sally Kern is talking about, and on and on and on. The difference is the Republican Party has taken over the majority of the seats at the Capitol. However, we do know also that not all those Republicans believe in the same things that you and I, or Representative Dank, would believe in, okay? They just went from actually having a D behind their name to an R behind their name, because they're big government people, what the bottom line is. And that's what I'm gonna ask everybody at the conclusion of the meeting today. Hold your own representative accountable, Paul Kelly. Don't try to hold him accountable or somebody else accountable. Hold your own representative accountable. Then we can actually make some headway in this deal. Because
Except, Bob, in one sense. Check these voting records, check what people are doing out there, and then pick a couple of districts. You know, it's like I tell my senior colleagues, I say, look, you could be people power. 37% of all the people who vote in a general election in the governor's year are 65 and over. 43% who vote in our Republican primaries are 65 and over. I tell you, you can be people power. All you got to do, Bob, is find you an attractive candidate or two, find these voting records that are bad, and then recruit a couple of good candidates to run against them in districts that are suitable for them. Now, you know, there's going to be a lot of opposition. I understand Chamber of Commerce did not support me this year. They didn't support my opponent, but they were out, some of their leaders were out saying, he's a troublemaker. And she's just going to be one of 20. And, you know, so you're going to have some opposition. And that's fine with me. They don't represent my constituents. They represent their members. If you were going to get $290 million in the next couple of years, why wouldn't you have 3 or 4 of your members go to the state chamber and pay them maximum dues? So they would be for wind energy. Do flipped for it. And so who are they going to be against when that's the case? David Dank, because I go out and tell the truth about it.
See, I think that's you know, to me, that's a very valuable asset. You become that valuable asset to the average citizen all over because you believe in what you're actually talking about. Now, you and I, we don't have to agree on everything. In fact, we're not going to agree on everything. It's impossible. You and your lovely bride never agreed on everything. We know that, okay? We're not.
She always won.
And the reason she generally won because she was right. I mean, no, next question. No, I actually knew his wife, and she was. What he's saying is everything's true. Go ahead.
Take a look at the Daily Oklahoman this morning. It clearly says that 20% of the Republicans and 20% of the Democrats were all that voted in this last election.
Wow.
Wow. 20%. That's nothing. What are you going to do to get your senator and your representative elected?
But my district voted more people in my in my general election than any other district in the state. It does every time. And I'll tell you why. Because we put out information not saying we're for motherhood, you know, but we put out information saying we're for you. And this is what we want to do. Why would people go out and vote when you put out this generic stuff that says, you know, we're against taxes, we're against war, we're for guns? You know, what are you for? Are you for it on college campuses? You know, you want them to have it in the House of Representatives? I told them when they brought that up a couple of years ago, I said, I'm getting an order against protective order against everyone in here. Thank you.
No, actually, the judge would actually grant you that order.
How are you putting out the information? How do you get the information out?
Direct mail.
You do it yourself?
And I've done enough of it that I use cartoons, I use things that I hope will get their attention. I'd be happy to share that. I do with my colleagues, the stuff I put out. You know, I show a big old government guy with his foot on their house on property taxes, you know, mean-looking guy. You know, I put things out that I hope will get their attention. And with all the king's horses and all the king's men against me this last time, I won by double digits. I got over 56% of the vote. Well, you know, I don't care if the state chamber is ever for me, quite frankly. The Oklahoma City Chamber was, because they happen to agree that I make a difference for Oklahoma City. And that makes me very happy as well.
Do you send mail to every registered Republican?
I mail, yes, I mail to, I go pretty far down.
In his district?
Put them in classes.
In your district?
Yeah, in my district.
Yes.
But that's why, you know, that's why we have, next year in my district, we'll have, and we always lead the state. And that's not always my fault, because it's, you know, it's a good district as well. Lakehurst, Edgewater, Quail Creek South, and that. But, and I have some Democrats as well in the south end. But I think you have to get people's attention, and most of them aren't willing to do that. And I don't blame them, because they don't really, a lot of them don't have a record that they should be proud of.
You know, now David's saying a very valuable thing to us here today, okay? What he's doing, he's representing his district.
Yes.
I mean, he's representing his district.
Yeah.
Now, i.e., you don't have to agree with him, but he's not representing you if you're outside this. He's representing, he gets voted in by his district. It's the same way that I'm going to brag on him a little bit. Now, we got almost nothing in common. But Representative Mike Shelton, which I've known for years, okay, and I know you have too, when he was an adjuster at the State Insurance Fund. However, he doesn't represent me, okay? He represents his district.
He does a good job at it.
And it's a whole different chase that he actually has. Now here's a little, now I'm going to do a slanderous thing on my representative. What he's just said that what he does for his district, I have yet to receive one piece of mail, one bit of information from my representative. Not one, okay? I did receive a Christmas card when I decided to challenge her for that race, that district. That's when I got my first piece of mail. But it was very generic in content. Now, hold on. I'm trying to make a point here with this whole thing. It's not about personalities, it's about issues. And what he's doing, he's representing his district, and I'm saying he's representing her well. So probably the people in his district are going to vote for him, and it's going to be very difficult to get him out of that seat, no matter who challenges him. However, in these other districts that they're not represented well, and they represent the chamber or these big businesses, let somebody try to challenge them, and if their incumbency, it becomes impossible because you don't have enough money. And I guarantee you'll never be able to outspend them. So again, question up front.
What was your question?
My name's Don. He's talking about your oath of office. Is your oath of office to your district or to the Constitution of the state of Oklahoma?
Well, obviously, you know, I love both. I mean, I'm not going to do anything that I think violates the state constitution. I mean,
Well, when you raise your hand, I mean, what are you saying that you agree to?
we agree to uphold the Constitution.
Okay.
But, you know, bottom line is the people who elect me are out there in District 85.
I understand.
I can't do you a bit of good if I'm not there.
That's right. That's right.
You know, I mean, I can't do you any good. That's why there are some issues that you sit there and you say, boy, I'd like to be against this. But, you know if you don't vote for it, that it's going to be, you know, it's going to be something that they voted on a bill last year that I voted against. It was on domestic violence, and it was on a credit against the taxes that were coming back to you to be able to put into a domestic violence program through the district attorneys. Why did I do that? Because we had passed the very same thing in 2011 when I was chairman of the Revenue and Tax. But, you know, they brought it up again, and I said, and the governor eventually vetoed it for that reason. But I said, we don't need two of the same thing. We've got enough laws out here. But did they use it against me? Sure. Sure. They didn't say, well, he voted for one and helped maneuver it through his committee in 2011.
Question.
Yes, how much does it cost to send out this information that you're talking about?
My mailings for me will cost me per mailing about $5,000. And I got to tell you what Bob said is true. All my campaigns, I have about $200,000 of my own money in them. And I go ahead and list that on the loan part just so people will know that I'm not kidding about it. You know, I put my own money up. I've never sent out a fundraising letter, and I've never had a fundraiser. Larry Nichols of Devon Energy asked me a few years ago, he said, when are you going to send out a fundraising letter? And I said, I'm not. And he said, well, if you don't, I'm not going to contribute. Guess what? I didn't and he didn't.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Representative Dank? Oh, we got, okay, go ahead.
I'm George, and I would like to know what websites might be helpful to us in finding out some of this information, how people voted and whatnot.
Well, unfortunately, right now, the only place you can get the votes is the House of Representatives. And Bob, we probably need to get together and let me show you how to do all these things and what you need to be looking for in that. And that way you could share it with them, I'm sure.
Yeah, what we'll do, and what I promised David I would do, I promised him that I would do this, is that I told him that I would try to help him this legislative year. In previous years, we went to the Capitol, bunches of us went to the Capitol and done different things. So again, I want to ask high nooners to help me, help him do away with some of these things we're talking about. Rather than just yapping down here, learning that kind of deal. Once we go to the Capitol, we learn how to lobby for citizens, okay? We talked about that, right?
Bob, thank you for being my friend all these years. We go way back, Bob and I do appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you for coming. My name's Bob, with 1 O. And once the state issues these tax credits and does all that stuff, is there anybody coming out, is there any organization or committee or something that checks and see if they've really said, they've done what they said they would do?
That's what I say, not really. We don't do any economic impact statements after the fact. I mean, you know, in fact, we don't do any cost-benefit analysis before. There's very little supervision, very little, I mean, you can't believe it. I couldn't make this stuff up if I wanted to. I mean, you know, we give away millions and millions of dollars with no documentation or anything. Now, one of the tightest controls through commerce is the quality jobs. We know exactly how much every company's getting, and that's public disclosure. We also know which ones fulfill their obligation and which ones don't. And I, quite frankly, just the other day met with Larry Parman, who's the outgoing head of the Commerce Department, and talked to him about what we can do to tighten up quality jobs. You know, maybe raise the amount that it takes to get into it, what the benefits have to be, and what we could do in terms of a clawback, so that if they don't fulfill their obligation, the state can get its money back. You know, and by the way, Bob, on me, I think they're just waiting me out. I mean, I've got 2 more years after this term, and that's it. And just like Mike, you know, there were people that I'm told they went out and drank and had parties when Mike was gone.
I did too.
David, I'm actually his best friend, and I actually did it myself. So
I just wanted to say, oklegislature.gov is the place I just looked up for the tax credit review, and it also has the summaries there, if anybody's interested in looking them up.
Okay.
Once again, I'm going to make a pretty good statement here. I don't know how good it is, but it may be a little lengthy, and I don't mean to, but anyway, just not a question. Okay, I know I'm going to drive you crazy, Sandra, but the thing about it, it doesn't do us any good to come down here and ask questions. What really does good is to go out there at the Capitol and start working and lobbying for the things that you believe in. That's where the impact's really going to be made. And the interesting thing about it, we know we can make an impact at the Capitol once we go out there.
So let me just, I brought these maps. Please don't let me leave without saying what they are. The first one Mike's showing you is, no, put that away, that's population data. Okay, this is all the technology centers and public colleges. I said years ago, even before I was in the legislature, it won't be long before you'll be able to walk to school from kindergarten through college. And that's the way it's getting to be. Go to the back side of that one, Mike. Back side. These are the school districts. We have 17 school districts in LaFleur County. 17 districts. I mean, you can't make this up. 520 some in the state. So many of them under 200 that you can see 100 of them. And on it goes. Waste. The last one is the County Commissioner barns. We have 231 County Commissioner barns. Every one of them have their road building equipment, their own crews, their own supervisors, everything.
Most of them are new buildings.
So it's not just tax credits, it's government waste. And I've told, God bless him, he's tired of hearing me, but I've told Murphy and the rest of them out there, we can just consolidate the Santa Claus Commission so many times. We've got to get serious about the big issues. And these are the big issues. And until people start making a fist, we're not ever going to get it done. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. You may actually think that this was that microphone buzzing. That's not true. That was my hearing aid. Okay, that's about as good a joke as you're ever going to hear, so if you didn't laugh, you don't have a sense of humor at all. Well, you're blessed today to get this information from Representative Dank. Now again, not asking you to agree with everything he said. I'm not going to agree with everything he said. Let's find that common ground that we do have to work together, rather than trying to vilify what somebody's actually trying to do and make a difference in your life. I mean, he's a good representative, and I'm going to say one of the better representatives that I've seen. However, we don't have to agree on everything, and we don't have to get mean, and we don't have to start vilifying, and we don't have to do this and all this other kind of crazy stuff that sometimes we do with our passions. However, let's work for the common good of the people of Oklahoma, and let's reduce this. There was a video that I'm thinking about actually showing it next week that somebody sent me. It was on this Collie Farina. I think I always get her name mixed up. Is it Farina? Is that how you say it? She's running for president. And it's about a 16-minute video. And I thought it was probably maybe one of the better or maybe the best political speech I've ever heard. And the reason for it is because she talked about substance, not about nonsense. She actually talked about solutions. So every time that you have a problem, let's think of the solution to fix that problem. And one of the things that I thought she nailed was about talking about big business. When she was the CEO of Hewlett-Packard, what she talked about is that they could afford all these government regulations. They could go out and afford to hire the accountants and the CPAs and the tax attorneys and on and on and on. Small businesses, you can't do that. And small families, you can't do that. So that big person or those big companies, they're going to be very well taken care of because they can afford the people from the CEOs to the CPAs and also the lobbyists to go out and lobby for these tax credits or whatever desires of their heart. But you don't have that prerogative to be able to do it. And I'm going to say that's nonsense too. The only thing most of us have to do is get up in the morning and go out there at the Capitol when they're in session, and you're going to make a difference. Guaranteed you're going to get to know a difference. I know almost every legislator at that Capitol knows Bob and Pam. They know them. They may not think of get their name right, but they know them because they're always out there. They know guys like Paul Kelly. They know who you actually are. So you will make a difference by going to the Capitol. And this year, what we want to do is we want to make that difference. We want to help him reduce these tax credits for the benefit of all us Oklahomans. So we can now spend our money on necessary things, like in quality school teachers. They need the pay raise, folks. I mean, like it or not, they deserve that pay raise that they're working for. Now, so let's move right on and kind of into the meeting. Thanks everybody for coming. Okay, High Noon Club, we're over. Thanks everybody for coming. Have a great week. Go out there and work really hard. Think of some great questions for next week at High Noon Club.